Hello, Shelly Ramus, Volunteer Specialist with the Iowa 4-H Youth Development Program. Today we will focus on new volunteer training and tips and resources to help support you as you work to support your new volunteers accessing and completing their new volunteer training. So let's go ahead and get started. If you go to the volunteer management webpage and you scroll down, again, we're going to refer today to the county-based orientation and training documents. You have the staff guide, which is your copy, your guide to assisting new volunteers in their county-based orientation and their training, and then the volunteer guide, the volunteer checklist for county-based orientation and training. So I'm going to go ahead and click into that volunteer checklist. On the volunteer checklist, if you encourage and share with your volunteer to go to page 2. So at the bottom of page 2 and the very top of page 3, they will find information regarding new volunteer training. The face-to-face 3-hour new volunteer training, as well as the 4 online new volunteer modules located in 4-H Online. So again, in this guide that walks them through a lot of the tips to onboarding and as they begin their process to training, they're going to find the 4-H Online link that helps them access those online training modules. They'll find the registration link to registering for their face-to-face training in their nearby county. They'll also find the volunteer resources link that helps them access other information, in particular the help sheet for accessing new volunteer online modules. So please keep referring back to that volunteer checklist for county-based orientation and training and utilize that as you walk through the process with your new volunteers. Also on the volunteer management page, you have access to the JOT forms that contain each new volunteer training location, and you can view the registrations via the JOT form. So I'm going to scroll down here. Here you'll find the JOT form report instructions. These are staff only. Reading those instructions, you'll be able to find, access, and log into the JOT form if you choose to be able to see those the face-to-face registrations. You will also find the staff help sheet for new volunteer training, which contains additional information regarding new volunteer training, as well as a helpful FAQ section. Finally, when you have had new volunteer face-to-face training in your county, you can utilize the staff help sheet to entering that new volunteer training into 4-H Online. So that assures that those volunteer records are up to date and accurate, and that we can see that those new volunteers have completed their face-to-face new volunteer training. For the volunteers, as mentioned earlier, our volunteers can go to the volunteer resources page to find the help sheet for accessing their new volunteer online training modules. Please refer your new volunteers to that volunteer resources page where they can find that, and that's linked in their checklist for county-based orientation and training. You as staff can also find that help sheet for volunteers to access online training via 4-H Online on the volunteer management page. So if you have not seen this before, this is a quick look at that 4-H Online help sheet. This is a great resource for volunteers to have when they go to access those online training modules. It's going to walk them through step by step in 4-H Online how they find and access and get started on new volunteer training modules 1 through 4. You can also refer your volunteers to the volunteer training page. So if we go to volunteer training, this is where your volunteers are going to find all of the training dates and locations for new volunteer training in the 2017-18 year. So they can look through this list and they'll be able to click on and register via those links. When your volunteer registers for a face-to-face training, they will receive an email confirmation. This email confirmation will also direct the new volunteer to begin their online new volunteer training sessions and where to find the instructions for accessing those online modules, again, via the volunteer resources page. So I'll quickly go into the volunteer resource page, and you can find right away on the top, your volunteers will be able to access that help sheet to accessing their new volunteer training via 4-H Online, as well as other resources. In addition to those email reminders the volunteer will receive after they register for their face-to-face training, Tilly and I also have a system in place to send 2-week and 1-week email reminders to all of the volunteers prior to their upcoming new volunteer face-to-face training. The email will provide information and reminders regarding the 4 online training modules via 4-H Online. We found this very helpful last year as we started that process and we began doing those email reminders. And again, it was another opportunity for the volunteers to ask questions if they had any, and or get assistance with accessing that help sheet to getting to their trainings in 4-H online. And finally, as you assist and possibly troubleshoot with volunteers regarding accessing and completing the online new volunteer modules in 4-H online, please note, in order to access and be able to complete and receive their certificate for each of the online modules in 4-H online, their profile must answer, "Are you a volunteer?" and it must be checked yes. This was something that we ran into a bit last year when volunteers weren't able to see the online new volunteer modules in 4-H online. It was typically because they hadn't marked yes under "Are you a volunteer?" The other tip is, as a county staff, you will need to make sure that they are marked active in order for them to fully complete and get their certificate for those online modules. Thank you for all you do with your volunteers and in the onboarding and assisting with new volunteers, helping them to access and register for their face-to-face training, as well as walking them through the process to accessing and getting those online training modules done. We truly appreciate it. It takes a team effort. Thank you.